Okay, and then there's the Facebook Live part of it. Okay, so we'll go live on Facebook. I just have to type up the intro.
Yeah, I just want to try to keep it like more positive, like moving forward.
This
I
is recording, by the way.
that's good. I just at the end of the day, I don't really think this was like a Me Too thing. I think this was I represented clients that were threats and I needed to be removed. And with me and my firm, it was kind of like a open source petri dish for the US intelligence agencies.
Yeah,
you know, and I was really naive, I just was naive. I mean,
yeah, I
just
feel like I am too. I feel you.
the way it goes.
Okay, all right. I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
No worries.
I need to put it to the page. Got to put it to the right page because I manage several. And okay, hang on. All right, thank you. Welcome back, Facebook. We are back with Trevor Fitzgibbon, who we were speaking with last night. And we're going to continue this conversation because we only had a short amount of time with you last night. And there's a lot more that we wanted to cover. So, some of the topics that we want to cover tonight is dive in deeper into your experience with COVID and what you learned through that experience. And also dive deeper into what you were talking about. Was it called ritual defamation?
Yeah, yeah, it's what we experience a lot nowadays, and you see it increasingly, an increasingly large amount of ritual defamation as as a tactic that's used uh, to dehumanize and basically kill political opposition.
And at least the third topic. I don't know if we might dive into other things too if we have time. The third topic is I want you to tell me more about what it's like to be back with your family now
Yeah.
that you've cleared a lot of this up and been able to move forward with your life. So start on any one of those three topics.
Uh, well, uh, you know, um, I never really left. I was kind of when everything was going down. It's just because of the situation and trying to find work. I had to leave. But yeah, I mean, I have twin 6-year-old boys and 8-year-old daughter, and uh, like when I look back at just kind of everything and what was done, um, uh, you know, I think you said alluded to it yesterday. It's when you are targeted and taken out, and your life and your work is hit. You take a hit. Um, the damage that's inflicted really isn't against the me, right? So much as it's against your children, your kids, and I don't know if we'll get into a little bit of ritual defamation campaigns. I don't think that's really quite understood at a level that that it needs to be, because I think that a lot of people uh, and I use this not in a negative context necessarily, but a lot of people on Twitter are sycophants and they like to move and go and tweet and retweet whatever narrative seems to be winning at the time, and without looking at the facts of a situation, and or letting due process take place, or things of that nature. And so, yeah, you can like literally just destroy lives. And I mean, I forgot who wrote the book, uh, how to how to lose friends and alienate people. It's I forgot his name, but he wrote a great book. This woman, before she boarded a flight, she tweeted something out, and it was a mistake what she tweeted. She was trying to make a joke. She was going to like South Africa to like deal with the AIDS epidemic, but she did it in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way, and like people really took offense to it and thought she felt that way. And by the time she landed in South Africa, like her Twitter account was gone. She had lost her job. Like friends, family, like it was a mob. And she had tweeted something out that was dumb, but it certainly wasn't. It was like meant as a joke. And so yeah, so like her whole life exploded, and I remember Monica Lewinsky did this amazing TED talk on it as well, um, about what happened to her and what's happened to her, and that was before social media, right? And she talked about like, had her experience been in the age of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, just like how horrific that would have been for her, because even without that stuff, she tried to commit suicide for several times. It's just it's pretty horrific. So uh a couple of things. One is that uh I think in my case, uh um Julian Assange gave a great speech. It was one of the last ones he gave before they took him to Belmarsh prison. Um, it was called the superpower of the accused. And in the speech, he talked about, essentially, was like, people think it's awful, but it's actually incredible. And I started to feel this way, like when they've come at you with so many different things, whether it's rape, sexual assault, or lying, cheating, racist, like, and it's just ridiculous, right? And you're cleared or whatever, but they keep throwing things. There's at a certain point you just don't give a fuck anymore. Like you're just like, okay, let's go. And that's actually a very empowering place to be, when you don't care, right? You just want to get the truth out and stuff like that. And so that was a big inspiration for me. And then the second thing is that lots of times the perpetrators of it, the real organizers of it, the perpetrators, the face of it, of these types of smear campaigns, um, in my case, they were. You kind of froze up. Are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm listening. I'm
Yeah.
listening intently.
No worries. In my case, based on the evidence that we have, like they were contractors, right, on behalf of, um, you know, what we presume was U.S. intelligence communities, and like they, lots of times these contractors are like former anons, ex-anons, or whatever, anonymous, um, and they're huge egos, have massive egos, right, and like, well, the muscle from Norway, thug, right? Just like, this person is an awful in broken English, and like tries to run these smears and has like, hundreds of different Twitter accounts, and they create fake fights online and stuff. But like, sometimes they're so over the top that they just, they, they keep me going. They trigger something in me, um, to make you want to fight back, and then you do, and you win, and it's great. And I think I told you, I tweeted out the surveillance photo of me that was taken outside of my home, way before any allegation ever came, and you know kind of validates what it was all about from the beginning. So that's empower.
Wasn't there something on YouTube as well? Weren't you at one point sent like a kind of a threatening YouTube video?
Yeah, yeah, there's been all sorts of different things. YouTube, letters, um stuff like that. But again, it's like, it's I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because I'm like a PR person, right? Like I just do media relations, and um, but I think what was going on with me was just a small thing. It's part of a much larger thing, um,
Yeah.
on behalf of the U.S. But so let me just say, so ritual defamation, and this is where the combination and the collusion between whatever crazy dark people, evil forces there are that are running that stuff at the top. But then you also have a lot of new organizations that have been created that the State Department funds, like Proper Not or the Atlantic Council, and um, these are efforts to what they would claim is like fight Russian disinformation, right, or things like that. Uh, but really, they're used to deplatform people on the left and the right who aren't necessarily with the program, as Assange clearly wasn't, and many, some people aren't. But I mean, you see it. Like, they were incredible journalists. Look what happened to Glenn Greenwald. I mean, he had to leave The Intercept. He resigned from the publication he founded as a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He left, right, because they wouldn't run his article. Um, and you have massive purges. I mean, I was taken off of Facebook, um, and without any warning. And I'm like, what did I do? But like, I couldn't even ask, what did I do? Right? They just said, unfortunately, you can't ask. Which I've got the screenshots of it. It's hilarious.
Wow.
Um, but
Well,
so you have a lot.
you refer to anons when you refer to the term anon, are is that connected to anonymous, or is that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So a lot of the original anonymous members, right? I mean, basically, if you're on Twitter or online, and if you see some mask and it says like, Jenna Anon or whatever,
Right.
like 9 times out of 10, that's actually going to be a U.S. intelligence agency, either a
Yeah,
contractor.
it seemed to me, I started kind of picking up on that back in 2016 too, because the messaging varied so greatly between the anon accounts that I saw on Twitter. And some of them had really polished materials that seemed like
Yeah,
professionally made.
yeah, totally. So, yeah, and they we've talked about Lulsec, and Sabu, this guy Sabu, who was busted, I think in like 2014, and he was from New York, and he was part of Lulsec, which was a crew um, that hacked into Stratford, hacked into a number of major Bank of America, a number of major corporations, and he was taken out, and then he flipped, but people didn't know it, and he basically he became an FBI informant, and took out a number of other members of Anonymous, and that's when kind of like you started to see almost these like counterintelligence operations, like Anon Intel Group on Twitter, and you would see Anon ISIS, like going after ISIS, right? But they were Anons that were really actually connected to the CIA at the time, and you just saw again this collusion of the two, and it's all kind of whacked out and scary, and I don't like to pay attention to it too much.
Let me ask you something on that point, though. I mean, obviously, these operations are intended to influence people by mass, right? Whether they're taking out people that they think that can move the needle, like yourself or a Julian Assange, or whether they're trying to influence people in mass. How deeply embedded would you, if you were to make a prediction, or if you have knowledge, how deeply embedded do you think that these sorts of operations got into things like Occupy and our?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's an Anon uh, who has admitted. I mean, she works for the State Department, and she infiltrated the Occupy movement. This isn't a new tactic, right? Like this has gone back. I mean, Fred Hampton, one of my heroes, was gunned down by the Chicago PD and FBI, but like working with an informant who was a member of the Black Panther Party and one of his friends who was in the apartment with him when the police raided it and gunned him down while he was asleep with his pregnant wife. And, he was a threat. And Fred Hampton was, I think he was murdered when he was 22 years old. And it was because of the successful, he represented himself in court. He was brilliant, football star, very charismatic, president of student body, and was a great organizer and helped organize the breakfast program for kids who lived in poverty in the inner city of Chicago. They would get a nutritious breakfast, and the Panthers would make it and serve it every single morning. And then that started to spread to Los Angeles and to other major cities across the country. And they took him out. And so, but this kind of like, you look at Martin Luther King, and there's a famous letter that the FBI wrote to him under the guise of somebody else, where they talked about his marital infidelities. And when the people find out, so basically you should just commit suicide. And they tried to convince Martin Luther King to commit suicide, and that was an FBI operation. So like this stuff happens like all the time, and it's been going on for quite some time. I think with social media, you just have new channels to do it, and it's much faster. One thing that's of interest is that when you're smeared, and you were talking about like you've been facing some smears right now, and if it's actual flat out defamation, one of the only recourses that works is legal, right? And to sue. And it's not about money. It's about like a legal action, and hopefully that's gonna wake the person up and get them to stop doing it. But one of the issues is like when you are like, if it's one person who's smearing you, or maybe a few, that's one thing. But when you're up against like a full-on operation that's coming after you, the thing that's difficult is that when you're in the middle of the litigation, you keep, the legal counsel is to not speak, right? That's what you're advised. You don't tweet, turn off Twitter, just like let the stuff play out. Judges are going to be happy when they see what these people are doing, and if you retaliate, then they can say, well, he's doing it too, yada yada, etc. But the problem with that is that as I have faced, and I still face it now, is it's really tactical, because the operation, there'll be so many anonymous accounts that most of them are bots, and they will be defaming you with the same words over and over and over and over again, sometimes dozens of times a day, sometimes 100 times a day, where they will write your name and then will write serial rapist, write your name and then write boom boom. And the problem is that gets into the algorithms,
right?
That really messes things up. And then it's also just social engineering. It goes back to the Nazi, what's his name? If you say something, repeat a lie over and over and over again, no matter what, the truth is people are going to start to believe it. And,
and it's also the name recognition thing too, where you have to say a person's name like 15. You have to say your candidate's name 15 times in order to actually get your voter to vote for them. But you're absolutely right. It comes from all sorts of fronts, and I've seen it happen on the local level too. And I've personally managed the candidate that I was doing social media for in Florida. He had claims against him too, but they were just as fuzzy, and they were just as much of a smear campaign.
Yeah.
and I had to navigate how to get through the messaging to get past that and promote the positive things that were going on with this campaign. I've seen this happen several times.
Yeah. So it's, but it's like whatever, that stuff's gonna happen, and you just have to move forward with your life. And I like I said, like today, I've never been happier. I'm working on, like, even if nothing had happened, right, and I still had my firm. This is like a dream account and issue to be working on. And again, like I'm a small fry in it, right? But like, what a cool opportunity! Like you're working to help save lives. This group of people that are viewed, it would appear by some to be expendable, right? Um, that uh, that have symptoms of COVID, and they're rejected by the hospitals because they're not sick enough, but they're not given any treatment. And yeah, again, when I think of the tens of thousands that have already died, um, because they weren't given treatment, it's unconscionable to me. And and now there's good news on the horizon, because it looks like there's now a much safer vaccine than the ones that are on the market now, called Novavax. And it's getting authorization throughout Europe, and the hope is that it's going to come over here to the U.S. But there's a lot less risk associated with it, and it's not genetic, and that's a huge thing. And so I'm psyched to do that. I'm working with a lot of artists and musicians right now. We're just about to launch Artists United Against COVID, and we just put out a great interview with an amazing musician, Joseph Arthur, who's an Emmy nominated musician. He's in a ton of bands, great guy. And he interviewed Dr. Peter McCullough, who's one of the doctors who leads us. And it's just kind of taken off. It's gone viral on YouTube and online, and so I'm pretty psyched about that.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
this new shot that you're talking about, is this a single shot or is it a dual shot?
It's a dual. It's like a dose. You take it yourself.
Oh,
It,
so is it
it's for home. You pick it up at you get it prescribed, and you take it yourself.
wow. Okay. Okay. And but it's a single dose is what you're saying.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. I will definitely keep an eye out for that because I'm pretty sure I'll probably need a booster in about 4 months.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is it's like it's the big problem has been with the spike protein, and the spike proteins are what are causing the blood clots, and which which is what's causing deaths and hospitalization. And um from what I understand, and I'm no physician, I'm not a doctor, but from what I am understanding, with this, you're able to really monitor the spike protein, how much spike protein is created. And so it's something more tailored to the individual, and not just kind of one-stop shopping. And I think that's important today, because not everybody's made the same.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. I'll definitely be asking Dr. Bill Honigman about that. That's our local expert in Medicare for all.
Yeah.
So let's transition. Did you want to expand on your experience of when you did get COVID, or do you want to go into a happier topic and talk about what it's like to move forward and have time with your family?
Yeah, I yeah, we can talk about both. I mean, I think that uh I was coming back from DC. I was driving back from Washington right before Christmas, and I was just kind of overcome, and I was sick, and I knew it. And I started to feel a bit delirious, and I'd never had a feeling like this before. And so um talked to a friend of mine who's a doctor, who's up in New York, and he gave me direction on what to do, and said try to get to, pull over, rest for a minute, and then try to get to an emergency room somewhere. And the closest ones that I knew that were decent was either Chapel Hill, UNC's hospital, or Duke's. And it just happens that I came to the Duke emergency room first. So I go there, uh, and they test me, and I'm COVID positive, and was tested positive for severe pneumonia as well. And was there for a couple hours, and they sent me home without any treatment whatsoever. And so I go back to a little Red Roof Inn that I was staying in, and it got really bad. And my doctor friend called again, asked what they prescribed for me, what type of medication, and I explained that even though I tested positive for everything, they didn't give me any medication. I didn't get any treatment, and he just, I was out of it. I was like chasing my last breath. I thought this was it, and he was just like furious. He called up the head internist at Duke, at the hospital that was working that day, and was just livid and said, "Why in the hell are you sending people away that are at risk of dying without giving them the monoclonal antibodies that are on your shelves, right, sitting there, or the ivermectin that's just sitting there, right? What's the deal? Get them back in." So they took me back, and I was rushed up into the COVID unit, and I stayed there for eight days, and they prescribed me the early treatment and that I needed, and I've been fine after that, But
And you didn't have to get on a ventilator either, right?
no, I was, it's hilarious. From what I've heard, like, well, it's not hilarious, but like, apparently Trump was like that close for getting on a ventilator. Um, but yeah, I didn't, and it's a little spooky. Like, you take these, monoclonal antibodies, and they were experimental, and I got back, but then for the first three months, when you're home, like they come to your house and draw blood and everything, and I asked about the COVID unit. I was like, just out of curiosity, in this COVID unit, like how, like based on the people who go into it, how many make it? And they said, maybe 6 out of 10 come out alive,
Oh, Jesus.
but 4 out of 10 end up dying in the COVID unit. And there's a lot of, senior citizens, much older, right? And look, I think that the vaccines, like, for specific cases, are very important. Older people, especially. Young, healthy kid, I don't see it. And the doctors that I trust, that are some of those eminent doctors in the world, like Peter McCullough, they don't see it either. But there's something going on, not just in the US, but like globally, that we've never experienced before. There's this like mad rush to get a needle in every arm. And I don't know what that's about. It's bizarre to me.
Well, I think probably the logical answer to that is that this is, for most of us, probably the scariest thing that we've ever had to face in our lives. And so anything that says you have a better shot at living by doing this, um, is going to be something that we're like, okay, sign me up, because this was like the worst year and a half of my life.
And I would agree. I think that the smear campaign and the blacklisting of early treatments, I think, misled people into thinking that the only solution was to take a vaccine. I think that when you look at, for example, India, as soon as they used ivermectin as part of their protocol, the infections plummeted to almost zero in India. And if you recall, India was off the hook just like a month ago. And so I guess that's the thing that's so crazy, that's hard to understand. Unfortunately, there's not like a medical court, right? So you have a lot of like anti-vax, conspiracy nuts. Then you've got folks like me who almost died, or we have loved ones who did die or almost died, who literally just want treatment. And I never thought of it as like a left or right thing, but now it's like I can understand a little bit more. I think that for the most part, like the left, i.e., like Democrats, have a lot more faith and trust in government and government programs and like things like vaccines and things like that. But there was just so much weirdness with this one, and there was such this mad rush where they waived all of the traditional testing that they would do on a vaccine before they give it to the public. They just like wave that off. And I mean, the main thing that was just, Dr. Corey talks about it, and Dr. Urso and Dr. McCullough, these are three doctors, some of the folks I work with, they're like, this is the first pandemic in modern history where you go to the hospital and they won't treat you even though you have it, because you're not sick enough.
Mm.
And then they tell you to go away, but you don't get anything. You don't get any treatment. That's insanity.
This was actually one of the most frustrating things for me the first couple of months that we were hunkering down for the pandemic. Was then there was the folks who were like, you're taking away my freedom. And we were all trying to flatten the curve at the same time. And the reality is the government was not giving the necessary protective equipment, the PPE. So not even our first responders had masks yet. We ourselves could not buy supplies anymore because people had hoarded. So we couldn't even get clean. I was boiling my clothes for 2 months, Trevor.
Right.
Boiling them with fabric softener because I couldn't buy detergent. It was impossible to get things. And I was trying to order things online so I wouldn't go in an indoor location because I couldn't get masks.
Right. It's just crazy. And it's true. It's like we go from like when it first came about, it's almost like the first thing we heard about in the media was like you said, the PPE, right? Like fear set in amongst, I feel like, government officials and also hospital workers and medical professionals, healthcare workers, because they didn't know, like, do we get masks? Right. So this total fear set in, right? But, it's like we went from the mask straight to the vaccine. And, if you look at like any pandemic that we've had in the US, like even like take cancer, right? I've worked with Dr. Carl June, this he helped to create this this protocol that it was just brilliant, that takes dead HIV cells that are manipulated, and then they re-enter it into little kids who have leukemia. And this protocol that they use, they're called serial killers, because the manipulated HIV cells, they turns into serial killers, and you can see it. It goes to the leukemia cells, and it just boom, 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 just kills it all. Wow. And it's saving lives, right? And that's for cancer, a certain kind of cancer, leukemia. But the point is, it's like, whether it's Johns Hopkins, whether it's Harvard, whether it's the CHOP, the Hospital of Philadelphia, all over the world, there are protocols, and you have universities and places that are constantly working on how to provide treatment for cancer, right? And I felt like we had the treatments. That's the thing. We had the treatments for COVID. We had protocols that were working, that had been proven to work, that the FDA approved, and they were blacklisted and they were taken out. And for example, Lancet, very early on, right? The creme de la creme of kind of scientific journals. Lancet puts out very early a publication stating that hydroxychloroquine, that was deadly, that it didn't work, and that it caused all this horrific, horrible things. And it was this company that had put it out, and they claimed it had been peer reviewed, and stayed up on the Lancet's homepage for like 2 weeks. Lo and behold, it was a fraud. Like, the paper was a fraud. It hadn't been peer reviewed. It didn't even really exist. The company no longer even exist. It was just all a scam. But this Lancet study, right, that's on the homepage of the preeminent medical scientific journal, right? And so after that happened, it influenced so many FDA workers, CDC, across the board, and everybody pulled, this treatment that they prescribe every day for other stuff. Same with ivermectin. I mean, for ivermectin, if you have scabies, right, and you have scabies, your doctor is like, okay, this person needs ivermectin immediately, right? Every medical professional in the United States, every doctor would be like, you're goddamn right she does. That's exactly what she needs right now. Get it to her. No questions asked. Well, if it's COVID, they're like, oh my God, no, what are you doing? I'm going to lose my medical license.
I think, to your point, a lot of what they were coming up with last year had a lot to do with world politics, because not just our presidential election, but world politics, because I think, wasn't it also China was trying to come up with their treatment as well? And there was kind of early on, there was the rush to be, who's the first kind of country that's going to come up with the medicine. And it seems like the hydrochloroquine, or however you say it, hydroxychloroquine, and whatever it was, the one that was in China, and I think there was also one in Russia. And it turned out all three of them had direct ties, financial ties to the people who were promoting them. But whatever it was that Trump ended up getting after the Rose Garden massacre that prevented him from staying off a ventilator, and Chris Christie got it too. They both got two different types of treatments. And I think one of them might have been, was it steroids though? Was it a steroids based thing?
Yeah, I had that too. They gave
Okay.
that to me. It totally worked, right?
Yeah, and that was the thing, is that they had that type of medicine, which they had not approved for COVID at the time. But as soon as Trump caught it, they were immediately able to be like, okay, well, we're going to give it to him, even though it's like, it's not FDA approved yet. But it was there. It wasn't it like, didn't it already exist? It just wasn't approved for that specific use or something.
Yeah, a lot of like all of these early treatments are already approved. They're FDA approved. We use them. Doctors use these medications already all the time, for different things. But again, when it came to COVID, they wouldn't talk about it. You couldn't talk about it. I I don't remember seeing on CNN or MSNBC one show where they talked about what are the different protocols that are working. What do we see working now?
I don't watch mainstream media very much
All
anymore, but
all it's about is pushing the vaccine. That's
the
it.
only person I can think of who might have been covering that would have been Chris Cuomo, because he kept doing that long hauler series.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's possible that he might have covered it, but I don't know, because I don't watch a lot of network news anymore. I try and get all of my news from print so that I don't hear it in somebody's tone of voice, because I feel like that's how they really try and influence you to one direction or another on the story. So if I just read it in my own head, then I'm not being influenced by somebody's tone of voice.
yeah. That's probably smart. You know,
Right.
I Yeah. Again, it's like I've been vaccinated my whole life. I'm not opposed to them at all. But I if you if you state any criticism whatsoever of like this vaccine, you kind of paint it as an anti-vaxxer. And that's another kind of total information operation. That's not at all what I am. I support vaccines, right? I just have some misgivings about the specific one and how it's been rolled out and handled. And, the idea that like in my state, a 16-year-old child can go ahead and get vaccinated without talking to his parents, when you have, you know, teenagers up in Ohio that are some have died from blood clots. Like I'm not. I think the jury's out a bit,
I
and I
think
guess
a lot of us I think a lot of us are getting to the point where enough of the population is vaccinated at this point that those of us who were very fearful from the trauma that we experienced of being in a pandemic, that we are comfortable enough to not worry about if you're wearing a mask or not, so long as you're not standing too close to me. Like, my personal space has really expanded. You know what I'm saying? I don't want anybody up in my business ever again.
I don't either. I know. I know. That's the truth. Yeah, I agree. I think that's really wise. I think that's really wise. I don't know. I just you're at a situation where the president of the United States is, you know, pushing, an Anheuser-Busch campaign for vaccinations and telling the American people to grab a beer and go get a shot, or get a shot and then go grab a beer. And when the lotteries are being given out where people are being paid money for showing your vaccine card, when Alaskan cruise lines, when an island is inflamed, but the first people they're gonna take that they're gonna rescue are only people who have been vaccinated, right? When they're trying to save lives, like it's just insanity, and it's hard to believe that our society, like humanity, has come to this point. It's just, I mean, to me, it's like very much a human rights issue, and like we're all in this together. It's not the vax, the non-vax. Like we all live here. We've got to coexist. We've got to figure out how to do it. You have eminent physicians saying that like there are protocols that will save you. Like I got treated, right? I have like it's down the middle. Some doctors that I totally respect tell me, um, you have been treated. Like if you take the vaccine now, that's the health risk for you, right? You've built up, you have the immunity. But according to the CDC, I need to go take the vaccine.
Yeah, I've heard it both. I've heard a couple of different things on it. I've heard that if you've had it within 6 months, that you're fine. Or if you've had it within 6 months, you can just take one shot, not two. You don't need both of them.
Yeah, the point is it's a fucking game show and nobody, it's like, it's nuts. It's
But you know what? At the same time, like when I ordered Grubhub the other night, and I got a I got a drink with my meal,
yeah,
and so he needed to see my ID, right? So I opened the door and I said, I don't. I've been vaccinated. Don't worry. Here's my ID. And he didn't have a mask on either. And he said, I don't believe in any of that. And I'm like, what? What are you doing delivering food?
I know.
I mean,
I know.
you should at the very least, if you don't believe in it, if you're not going to take the vaccine, you should at least wear a mask. Come
Yeah,
on.
no, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, so that's going on, and um, yeah, on a happy note, it's good to be alive. It's good to have work. It's good to I don't know, just try to take steps forward, and I don't know, just kind of like I don't know, do better every day. So
That's awesome. I'm so happy that you've moved because that's such a hard thing to get through. And it can really tank a person, it can just emotionally, mentally, not only financially and everything else, but you really powered through and you've done so well. And I kind of love that, like, we've been late because you're putting your kids to bed. I kind of love that.
yeah, yeah, they're great, and I don't like to talk about them too much, but they're really amazing. And so there's a lot to give and live life for right now. So start living, right? That's it. It sounds so cheesy, but it's true. It's like when the shit happens, right? Everybody, like, you go through it. Everybody does, right? At some point in your life. And I know it's gonna sound cheesy, but that line in Shawshank Redemption, "Get busy living or get busy dying," like, it's so true. It's like, what are you gonna do? You don't have much of a choice, right? Like,
Absolutely. So,
what's the like? What's the point in like living not gonna if you're not gonna try to do just go for it.
yeah, we only get one shot at this, right?
Yep, totally.
Okay, so let me, we are, I don't know, what are we, 45 minutes in? Do you want to, is there anything else that you would like to share with us this evening before we conclude?
You know, uh, Look out for Artists United Against COVID. Again, this is an effort. Uh, it believes in early treatment, and it believes that the vaccines and early treatment have to coexist to really save lives, to save everyone. And the bottom line is not everybody's going to get vaccinated. And are those people like expendable, or do we want to try to save lives? And or women who are pregnant, and or kids, or like, so. Uh, Look out for that, and I don't know, just hug your kids, celebrate life. That's pretty much it.
All right, I love that. All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight,
Yeah, thank you too.
telling your story. And I'm going to conclude Facebook and then the recording.
All right.
Okay.
Should I stay on?
I stop it. There we go. I'm not very good at this. Hold up. Do you want to stop?